Hi, and welcome to the Virgin River Cafe Rewatch podcast. Good morning, Gigi.
Good morning, Tracy.
How
How are
are
you?
I'm all right. I'm good. I'm hanging in there. It's been a rough morning. I think both of
Yes,
us have had a bit of a an
yeah,
adventurous morning, but you know,
I'd like to start it over again, but you know what? Go with the flow.
sometimes you just take a deep breath, you get your caffeinated beverage, and you just breathe.
Move on. That's right.
Sometimes you just breathe. That's why I have that tattooed on my finger that says just breathe because I have to remind myself of it because life can be crazy town.
Yes, it can be.
And sometimes I always do, I sit in my car and I drink my coffee. It's like my little oasis. So,
That's right. Your
yeah.
your escape from your escape.
Yep. Yep, even if it's in my driveway. Kids will come out and they'll be like, I have to tell you something. I'm like, no, I'm on the phone. I'm not on the phone, but I motion like I'm on the phone. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, 5 minutes, just so I have a moment. It's a trick, parents that are listening. Very good trick. You just tell them you're on the phone. They believe you because they don't know any different. And then I just sit back and, enjoy my coffee for a little longer. Take a moment. Take a
Well,
moment, ladies and gentlemen. Take a moment. We all need a moment. Today we both needed a moment. But okay.
oh
So
yes.
now
Me-
so let's get to it. What are you what's your
Today,
what's your
because
poison
my
today?
my poison is very simple. Black coffee. I
Ah,
got because I just needed something to just jolt me
boy,
out of
that
the morning.
that's an expression of the day, huh?
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Just let's
that's
just
it.
get to it, right?
Exactly. Nothing fancy because I just need my day to be a lot simpler.
I love that for you. Yeah.
And what are you having?
Well, I sometimes I go down the rabbit hole of Instagram. I
Yes,
admit it.
you and me
We
both.
all do.
You and
I'm
me both.
sure it
Yes.
can happen. And I was looking at something because I always, when you have interests, the things pop up. And
Mm-hmm.
I always get these coffee things that pop up. And coffee coffee is expensive, okay? And
No kidding.
I make it at home all the time, and I buy it outside all the time. I mean, I would say equally. And it
Yeah.
has gotten very expensive in the last couple of years, like almost double. So drink out. I don't drink coffee out as often anymore. But I found a hack and I thought I would give it a try. And I basically get my coffee that tastes good and the same without
Mm-hmm.
the price. And
All right.
so instead of buying like a iced coffee or a cold brew or whatever, which I don't know, these days can cost upwards of, depending on where you live, $5, $6, $7.
Mm-hmm.
I went to one of our local places and I got a triple espresso in a large cup with ice. And you can get your
Ah.
cream or you can get your whatever. You can add flavor if you want. All that comes with it. I have my
Mm-hmm.
own flavored syrup at home. I actually have my own cream flavor at home. So
Of
I was
course.
coming home anyway, so I just need the coffee, right?
Yep.
And I added my extra stuff and it was $3.45.
Cool. Because
So
normally it's almost $7.
it's like 6.45. If I don't get the cold foam, it's
Mm-hmm.
6.45. So, and I didn't get the cold foam, but that's okay. I
Okay.
can make my
Okay.
own at home. I'm lazy
Well,
and I just wanted to drink my coffee. I didn't want to have to work. Just can we just have the coffee? So, I found a way to get less expensive coffee and still have everything that I want in it. So,
bravo. Bravo.
right?
Bravo.
So now I can buy twice as much coffee is my thinking. I mean, that's let's be honest. If I'm getting coffee 3 times a week and I'm spending as much as I'm spending, now I can go coffee 6 times a week and spend the same. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just kidding. There's always a rationale. It's
Well,
yes,
if it gets you through the day, I say go for
it really does.
it.
It's
Uh,
mandatory at this point in my life. So,
Honey, I get that.
all right.
And
Enough of that.
yes,
Enough of that. Now that we are feeling caffeinated, we can move
we
on.
can we can proceed.
All right, we are coming to the very end of season 2. This is the second to the last episode. And I say
Yes.
this every time. Yes, I say it every time. This is a really good episode because it's a really good episode. The next one is better, but this one is good.
Okay.
Better. That's better and worse. Ugh. Okay, let's just focus. Focus, Gigi. Come on, Gigi, help me focus.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's get started.
This episode is season 2, episode 9.
Okay, so the description says Mel searches for Jack, who has stumbled upon disturbing news. Jamie entices Preacher with a job offer. Hope questions Doc's loyalty. Oh my. Boy, everybody's getting into it this time.
She's got a nerve.
Okay, so instead of starting off with scenery this time, shocker, they are starting off with Jack, and he's driving through the forest. It's really hard to tell if it's day or night. It sounds like he's talking to someone at the bar, and he was like, everything is good, and he's nearly hitting this poor man who happens to walk out in front of him and drops because he's a mess. Something's going on. Jack, of course, because he is he's not going to leave a poor guy laying in the middle of the road.
He's the savior of all saviors.
Right? Yep. Johnny on the spot. So the guy's like, help, help. And he helps the guy up. And what does he do? Does he call Doc? No. He's got to call his good friend Mel. I mean, normally he would have called Doc, but now that Mel is a medical professional, he feels closer to her. He's going to call his good friend Mel. And he wakes her up, and he says, how fast can you get to Doc's? Now, doesn't Doc live upstairs? Like, I'm just saying. If he would have called Doc, Doc could have walked downstairs.
Pretty much.
But wait a minute. But then again, isn't Doc canoodling with Hope? He might be over at Hope's. So
that's true. That is quite true.
Maybe they're back together. He doesn't want to disturb him. Okay, we'll go with that. I'm going to go with that. That's my theory. He didn't want to bother Doc. Doc's an older gentleman, and he probably wants to spend more time with Hope anyway. I'm with Mel anyway, so he's going to call her. Okay,
all right.
So
we're gonna go with that one.
It's early morning, and Mel is at the clinic waiting for Jack to arrive. And Jack walks in with this injured gentleman who is a mess. So they introduce him, and Jack is explaining what he knows, what he found out on the ride from wherever he was to the clinic, that the guy had been out there for several days, that he needed help, he could have lost his way, and his name is Adrian, and he slept most of the way to the clinic. Jack is helping Mel get the guy on the table, and the guy apparently was somewhere near Pine Ridge. I don't really know how far away that is from them, but he got himself turned around, and he had been out there for a while. Jack already called his family, let them know where he is, let them know he's okay. I'm sure they're on their way. And Mel's kind of checking him out. The guy's groaning, and she's like, oh, without an x-ray, I don't know, but it looks like maybe he broke his arm. She's very dehydrated, and she tells the guy, we're going to start an IV, because obviously he's dehydrated. He needs an IV. Get some fluids going. And so she's getting her supplies together. Love the multitasking this chick has. She's grabbing supplies. She's thinking about her patient. But in the middle of it, she's like, Jack, what are you doing out near Pine Ridge so early in the morning?
Exactly.
While she's doing whatever she's doing, waiting for an answer, like literally stops. And he's like driving around. It's like at 4 a.m. So it was 4 a.m. Just driving around. And he was like, oh, yeah. And she's like, really, Jack? Like, she will call him on his BS without hesitation.
She'll call anybody on their BS.
Yeah, but she knows him, and she will especially call him
Yeah,
out. And
that's
he's just
true.
looking at it like, he goes, well, I was on my way to see Spencer. And she's like, what? He goes, well, yesterday he said, so he must remember that little look that him and Spencer had at the bar.
Yes.
And he talked to him, and he was like, yesterday he said that he would testify against Calvin. Now he can't get a hold of him, so he's worried. And he was like, okay, but you need to call the sheriff. And Jack's like, no, no, no. Calvin poisoned my customers, and she's like, yeah, which is why you need to call the sheriff. And he was like, and she's like, Jack, when are you going to stop? And he's like, what are you talking about? What, stop what? And he was like, going to war. And he was like, I'll stop when it's over. And now,
sounds like a macho man move.
Yeah, and she's like, I care about you, Jack. And I'm worried you're putting yourself in danger. Oh no, go. The guy's coughing. Go back to your patient. And she was like, can we talk later? He's like, yeah, sure. I'll meet you at the bar at noon. She's like, fine. So she goes back to her patient. And he was like, oh man, I'm going to have this conversation with her. And she's going to grill me like a burger. It's not going to be pretty. But he's in for it. He's in for it. It's okay.
It's Mel, the love of his life. He'll get over it.
Yeah, he doesn't have her yet. She's on the hook. He's reeling her in. He's just taking his time. She's still hesitant, but that's okay. We're going to get there.
God, let him get there, please.
I know. It's just patience. The writers extended this longing and sexual tension. They extended it because they felt it was a better storyline. I know the audience is like, dude, just get to it. Good Lord. I mean, the payoff is nice, but it's like, it just takes so long to get there.
Sometimes it just takes too long, yeah.
That's okay. It's all right. We're here for it. So Doc is hanging out outside of Connie's general store, sitting at a little table, having some coffee. He looks very nice. He looks all dressed up. He's got a little suit on. No tie, but just, he's looking a little dapper this morning. And he's on the phone. He's like, oh, sounds like you got it handled. Great. And Hope walks up. And apparently he was talking to Mel. So Mel must have called him to inform him.
Well, of course she has. Because if she doesn't,
there will be hell to pay. Doc needs to always know what's going on.
That's right.
And he trusts her, so she handled it. And he was like, okay, I'll call you from the car. And as Hope walks up, and she sits down, and she's like, oh, I thought we could have breakfast together. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm really running short on time this morning. And she's like, Vernon, Charmaine is considering moving to Oregon. And Jack's buying a house for the twins because he has absolutely no idea. And she is just beside herself. He's like, okay, we've gone over this. And Jack made it very clear you have to stay out of his business. And I get where she's coming from because this would be bad. I mean, he needs to know.
Yeah, I get that. But the point is, Hope has to get to a point in her life where she has got to let people do what they got to do.
And I know.
And I get that. I get that Jack is like a son to her. I understand that. But there is a time when you have to clip the wings and let your children fly.
Yeah, and I know where she's coming. It's like it's hard to sit back and watch when you know it's going to end badly. When if you were to step in, you might be able to ease some of that.
But
I get where she can't.
No, not with the history she's had with Jack.
Under maybe normal circumstances. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I mean, it's like looking at the situation objectively. If you see someone getting ready to like go down a path that is a bad way, is bad. It's hard sometimes for some people, like Hope, to just sit back and watch it happen.
I get that.
So, and she's like she even says, how can I stand by and watch Charmaine blow his life up? Like, she knows this is what would happen, knowing that she could have done something. And, I mean, he's rearranging everything so he can be a hands-on father. And then how is he going to feel if she just yanks the rug out from under him, moves away? and takes the babies. It's like, wouldn't
Well, that's
you
why
want to? It's like, if that were you, wouldn't you want to know? If somebody found that, it's like the heads up would be nice. But then Hope is sort of stuck. Like, yes, he needs to know, but she really shouldn't be the one to tell him. So
That's true.
Doc is like, yeah, it's quite a pickle, isn't it? It's just, he's like, over it. Like, I'm out of here. He's like, and the worst part, none of this is my fault. Like, she's finally, not a part of it. She's like, I was an innocent bystander minding my own business, and
I like
Charmaine
how she says that.
drops a stink bomb in my lap. And he's like, look, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. The issue is the information that Jack needs to know. And this is where Doc is like, yes, I get it. But if it comes from you, he's going to shoot the messenger. So
Exactly.
what you need to do is find another messenger. So get the information to him. Just don't be the one to tell him. Just don't be anywhere near it. But yes, it is information. Even Doc feels like, yeah, he should probably know this. But yeah, you cannot be the one to tell him. That would be bad. That would cinch it for good. They would be done forever. And she's like, how is that helpful? And he's like, well, I'm sure you'll figure it out. I got to go catch my flight. Bye-bye. And she's like, where are you going? Medical conference in Seattle. She's like, what? You hate to go to those things. He's like, I never said that. He's like, yeah, you say it all the time. And she's like, and excuse me, but why am I hearing about this right now? He goes, oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't aware that I needed to, like, run my schedule by you. See you later. Be back tomorrow. And off he goes. She's like, where are you staying? Oh, I'll be in Seattle. Bye-bye. And off he goes. So now she's got this stink bomb she's got to deal with all by herself. And you know her, huffing and puffing.
Well, sometimes you got to deal with what you got to deal with. So now we're back. Connie's at the truck.
Yep, the bakery truck.
Preacher walks up. She's got to give him his stuff.
Oh, yeah. They're short on pies at the bar. So they're ready, got pies ready for him. Apparently, Lizzie was supposed to fill the order. Well, Lizzie. Lizzie was supposed to fill the order, and she didn't. And she always says stuff like, she's more idle than a Sunday afternoon, and she's allergic to work. And it's like, why does she keep her around? Because she kind of has to. It's like, it's sort of cheap free labor.
He's also a family, so
Exactly.
There's not much he can do about that.
No,
so.
I know. She's stuck with her. And Preacher's like, I don't know, it kind of sounds like a normal teenager. Which I guess is true. Which I suppose is true.
Yes, so. Doesn't make it any better, let me tell you.
She's like, yeah, but technically she's an adult, but nice of you to say, because she's 19. So he's right. Technically she is an adult. She just doesn't act like it all the time. So then Connie reminds Preacher, don't forget, come by after work and we can work out your alibi.
The detective slew of Connie.
And he was like, no, it's too late. She's like, no, it isn't. He goes, no, the sheriff called me. What did he say? He's like, well, I don't know yet. I went to see him. He wasn't there. And she's like, good. He was like, he was out, but someone discovered Wes's car. That means now they know that Wes's car was discovered. And she was like, yeah, but if you haven't spoken to him, we still have time. And he's like, look, Connie, I really appreciate everything you're doing, but I think I'm going to handle this on my own from now on. And she was like, no, absolutely not. I refuse to let you go through this by yourself. You need me. He goes, no, Lizzie needs you.
Yes.
And he's like, I don't want anybody else getting mixed up in all of this and the choices that I made except for me. Like, he doesn't want to pull her into the mess that they've created.
Yeah, well, it's a little too late for that. Because she, as I said, she thinks she's Angela Lansbury.
Oh, yeah.
Murders.
Absolutely. And she's like, don't be pig-headed. And he was like, no, I'm making a calculated decision. How do you figure that? And he's like, well, think about it. What happens to Lizzie if something happens to you? Like, say, for instance, they do this alibi and they get caught in, I don't know, not like Connie would ever go to jail, but she could get in trouble for it. And then what happens to Lizzie? And Preacher's just like, the reality of it is you got to take care of you so you can take care of her. He's like, well, she'd probably go back with her parents. And he goes, and is that really the best thing for her? And she's like, well, I guess not. He goes, and Preacher's like, when I was growing up, My mom was always around. My dad was there. We had family dinners. They were at all the ball games. And what they taught me was that it's really great to have one person who you can count on, that's there for you, that invests their time, and they can count on you. And he reminds her that she is that person for Lizzie, because Lizzie doesn't have that with her parents. And I don't believe she has any siblings. So she's kind of out there by herself. And Connie has become that person for her. I mean, it took a minute. It took a couple of minutes because they were at odds very early on. But now I think they're in a better place.
Yeah, nobody likes to be shipped off to places.
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
So Preacher's, it's not that he doesn't want her help. He's asking her not to help because it's the best thing for her and Lizzie.
Yeah, for the sake of Lizzie, it's best that she stays out of it.
And okay, we know Angela Lansbury's not going to butt out altogether. She's going to be let's just say she's going to be waiting in the wings just in case she's called up to bat, right?
Yes.
Okay. Goodness.
Yes,
so there we have Jack, and he's at the gas station gassing up his car. And Carlos, that's the real estate agent guy, he's like, hey, I've got great news about the house. And Jack is like, oh, yeah? Great. What? And he was like, the seller wants a 15-day escrow. And he goes, wow. How am I supposed to make that happen? He goes, well, we can expedite your inspection. We can put a rush on the dock. It can happen. We can make it happen. And Jack's like, and he's like, so what do you want to do? And he goes, well, I guess I'm buying a house. And he's like, okay, I'll email you the paperwork. We'll get back to you tonight. He goes, already on its way. I think you made the right decision, Jack. And then Jack, of course, remember, he was wondering how's he going to pay for the mortgage. And the guy was like, yeah, there's somebody I know. Maybe can rent one of the upstairs rooms, or I think there was like a side back house or something. And he goes, yeah, send me that information for the renter. And unfortunately, Carlos gives him bad news that guy already found a different place. So Jack's like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this anyway. And I don't have all the money, but so Jack's buying a house. Jack is buying a house.
Yes,
so now we know for a fact he was living above the bar, and he did not have a place of his own. But soon he will.
Yep. Gotta put those in place.
Oh, nice. Love the scenery, the river, the mountains. Oh, beautiful. So we're back at the bar, and the Sewing Circle are chilling out, running Ricky ragged.
As they always do.
Yeah.
Everybody else is second in waiting to them.
And then we see one of our lovely characters that we love so much, Bert's at the bar, and he's like, hey, Ricky, got an ETA on my burger. I got a guy. I got to go pick up a toe. You need to hurry it up. I got to get out of here.
Love Bert. Love
Bert. Right? And so Ricky's like, yeah, let me check. So he's on the phone. He is all over his phone. Now, it's Lizzie. And
of course it's Lizzie.
That's his biggest distraction right now.
Exactly.
And she's like, can you come over? And he's like, I'm working. And it's busy. I mean, it's not like he's just sitting around, folding napkins. And she's like, please, with all these emojis. And he was like, later, question mark, question mark, question mark. And she's like, but I'm scared I heard something.
Oh, for the love of you-know-who.
And so, of course, he's going to drop everything and be there soon. So now he's got to find a way out of the bar. So he stops Preacher, and Preacher's like, hey, I need your help to unload this truck. And he goes, I need to go home for like an hour. And Preacher's looking at him like, what is going on? And he goes, Bear knocked over the trash cans, and Grandma needs help picking it up before the raccoons get into it. And he's like, a bear? Really? And how does she know it was a bear? I think she saw it, him or her, or, if it's hard to tell if it's a girl bear or a boy. I mean, he just stopped talking. Like, if you're going to lie, you don't just keep, it just makes it sound worse. He goes, yeah, it's a bear. It's a bear.
You see, the difference between him and Lizzie is this. Lizzie has spent her life lying.
Oh, my God. Out. She can lie in her sleep.
Exactly. Him, on the other hand,
it's like, duh. He always sounds like he's having a seizure.
And it's the thing is, the adults around him know he's lying.
Well, he just looks guilty. Like he didn't even do anything, and he just looks guilty. And he was like, preacher calls him. He's like, dude, you're a terrible liar. And he's like, okay, fine, it's Lizzie. She's freaked out about something. It's like, why didn't he just say that? He's like, I'll be fast, I promise. And he's like, okay, go. And he was like, thank you. It's like if he would have just said that.
I know.
And then Bert's like, wait a minute, did Ricky just leave? Like, who's taking care of my burger? Poor Bert. Aw. He goes, I ordered like a half an hour ago and I haven't seen it. He goes, sorry, Bert, I will take care of it myself and I'll give you dessert on the house. And he goes, well, all right then.
Love Bert.
So Mel walks in, she sits down, and he's like, hey, I got a catfish on the menu today. And she's like, oh, that sounds perfect. She's like, so can you tell Jack I'm here? And he goes, I'm a little bit late. And he goes, oh, he's not here. He said he needed to do something or whatever. She goes, at the bar? He goes, He goes, well, that's weird. We were supposed to meet here for lunch. And Preacher asks, well, did you try him on his cell? And he's like, no, but I will. And he goes, and Preacher's like, well, I will, if I see him, I'll let him know you're looking for him. And
Bert is like, where's his burger? I'm like, and that's what I'm thinking in the back of my head. I'm going,
feed the man.
My burger.
Just feed the man. Hope is heading to the bar. And as Mel's leaving, she's trying to reach Jack, and she calls him, and she's like, hey, it's me, leaving a message because it went to voicemail. I'm here at the bar for lunch like we planned. And Hope is standing behind her, waiting patiently. And she's like, oh, are you trying to call Doc? She's like, no, Jack, actually. And he's not answering his phone, and Preacher doesn't know where he is. Sounds like a Charmaine issue to me, says Hope. She's like, I don't think so. And she's like, well, why not? And she's, well, they have a lot. And Hope, yes, they have a lot to figure out. But she's got an ulterior motive as to why she's leading this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. She's like, well, they have a lot to figure out before the twins come. And, there's so much to talk about. And Hope's like, Mel's like, yeah. She's like, like where they're going to live. And she goes, well, I don't think it's something they have to worry about right now. And Hope is like, yeah, but their situation, I'm telling you, it's like a landmine waiting to explode. I mean, she looks worried and over the top, and Mel calls her on it, of course. It's a little dramatic. And Hope is like, good grief, you're just terrible at picking up subtext. It's like she's terrible at putting down subtext for someone to pick up. Exactly. I'm sorry to say.
Exactly. It's like she wants to get to the point, but she hasn't gotten to the point.
She's nowhere near the point. She goes, so here's the deal. Charmaine is considering moving to Oregon, but she isn't going to tell Jack until after she's made her decision. And he needs to know right away, but I'm not going to be the one to tell him, so you're going to have to do it. She's like, whoa. You're going to have to back up. She goes, no, I'm not supposed to be involved. It's in Jack's personal affairs. So I'm officially passing the baton to you. And she's like, no. You telling me is you being involved. She goes, nope, not the way I see it. And she walks away. It's like, drop that in Mel's lap. And now she's like, oh, I've washed it away from me.
Exactly.
Like, oh, the weight is now lifted, and she's just going to skip into the bar and meet the ladies at the sewing circle. Morning, ladies. Hello. Like, she's, oh my gosh.
Oh, yes.
Now, Muriel went on a trip.
That's right.
Because Connie is like, here, Muriel said that she was going to finish these pieces before she went on her trip, and she didn't. It didn't happen. So, here you go. You get to finish them. She's like, oh, well, where is she? Seattle. For a wine cruise. She was so excited she bought a whole new wardrobe. She goes, how many skin-tight outfits does a person need? She goes, well, she said one of the dresses was backless. Can you imagine? And somebody's like, thankfully, no. She goes, where's Doc? The bakery truck this morning, he said he had to catch a flight. And she goes, a medical conference. And Lily is like, where? Hope.
Okay, so here is where things are very interesting. Mm-hmm. You notice everybody knows where everybody's moves are in
Always. Always.
So you can't even sneak out of town without somebody eating you.
you literally have to sneak. I mean, if you go get coffee and then they want to, how you doing? What are you doing? What's up? What's on your agenda today?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like they tell you and then they keep it to themselves. No,
No,
they
no.
come and they share. They're just it's a sharing is caring kind of community.
It certainly is.
Oh my god. Yeah. So Lily's like, where's Doc? I'm like, Seattle. And then everybody, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, she's looking at her, everybody's looking at everybody. It's like, oh well, isn't that a coincidence? Doc and Muriel visiting the same city. How nice for Joellen to mention that.
Exactly. It's so the fact that she mentioned
I don't know
Joy,
that everybody, like, they knew Muriel was going somewhere, but they may
yeah,
not have known that Doc was
yeah,
going, and now they put it
but,
together. It's like, oh, now it all fits. Okay.
yeah, but Muriel's going on a boat trip.
She's going
That
on a
doesn't
wine
mean
cruise.
right. Exactly. Doesn't mean that Doc going.
It's the same city.
Yeah, but
It's a little sus. A little
yeah,
suspicious. And
I agree. But
interesting.
what happened if they both went to Eureka?
Right.
Which
Right.
is
I
2
know, but
hours of,
yeah, this is
and
a
I
more conscious decision because it
understand.
involves a
Yes,
plane ride,
that's true.
packing a
It does.
suitcase and all, and then Joellen shares because she clearly
Mhm,
talked to Muriel before she left that yes,
mhm,
she is going on a wine cruise, but before the wine cruise, she's going to spend 2 days in the city.
mhm.
And then everybody's and I love Connie. She's shaking her head like, oh no, you shouldn't have said that. You can't take it back. You can't ring a bell. And
and,
Lily's looking
and
at
he's
Connie, and
and
Connie's looking at Joellen, and Joellen's looking at Hope. And then it's the truth. It's like, yeah, do we really need a play-by-play? Now Hope is pissed.
yes.
And then Joellen tries to change the subject. Look at this pattern. Isn't this pretty? It's like,
I know it's a little too late.
mm-hmm.
Little
The
too
cat
late.
is way out of the bag.
Exactly.
Okay, so now we are at Charmaine's apartment. Now, it looks like she put away most of the baby stuff. She has
Hmm.
by the way, can I say, she seems to have a really nice apartment.
Well, I don't think it's an apartment. I think
I
it's one
think
of
I
those.
think it's an apartment.
Okay, because
It
all right,
looks like
maybe.
an apartment because when she opens the door, it almost looks like it's a second floor, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay. Maybe. Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it
It does
seems
look
really
like.
like a nice place. Like I mean, hairdressers can make good money,
Yeah, that's true.
you
If they
know.
do this. Yeah.
And she has said before that she's like one of the top hairdressers. And I think from what she said before, like when she was out sick and she was staying at Hope's, that
Mhm.
she had made comments like, "Oh, the girls, called Jack and blah blah blah, and I'm gonna fire them." So it sounds like she has a stake in this salon.
Mhm.
Like she's got to go and open the salon, and this she's making decisions about this and that. So if I feel like if she maybe a manager, maybe she's a part owner, or
Yeah,
I feel
because if
like she's
you
more than
remember,
just a hairstylist.
yes, yeah, because if you remember back when wasn't talking to Jack and Jack had to go see her
Yeah,
and she was sweeping up the floor
right.
that night. So it seems like you're right. Like she has some sort of partnership with them or some senior person
Yeah,
at
I feel
this.
like I feel like a manager, possibly a part owner type situation. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like she does pretty good for herself. So she's
And
she's home.
yeah, the place doesn't look like babies are us threw up in the place.
No, it looks like she's put some stuff away. And look who visits. It's Mel. Now, she opens the door and the look on her face is like, "Ugh, really?" And Mel's like, "Hi." And all she's thinking is she's checking on my medical status because why else would she be here? Like there's no other reason that this woman should be talking to me. Like we don't travel in the same circles, we don't have the same friends. Yes, we are in love with the same man, but we've established that that's not a good situation. And so Charmaine is like, "I didn't ask for a house call."
Oh,
And she's
yes.
like, Mel's like, "No, no, no." She goes, "I'm just wondering if Jack is here." Now, I love Charmaine how she's so coy. It's like she takes this opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to get
And
as
she's got.
many digs as she can
I
in.
know. got the smirk look on
Oh,
her face. Want to bitch slap,
right?
basically. French. I'm like,
She's like,
okay.
oh, that's funny. I thought I was the only one who chased after him. I just thought that was so funny. And Mel is like, no, it's not. God, it's not what. I mean, she looks actually worried. She's like, no, that's not what this is. And she's like, okay, well, you keep telling yourself that because he's not here. And she stops her. She's like, no, I honestly think something is wrong. And Charmaine's like, okay. And she lets her come in. And she's like, what? What? And she's got her arms. I mean, it's still, there's a lot of baby stuff, but at least it's more organized. It looks better. Like, I don't think her place is very big, so it's just a little more organized. I mean, and Mel's probably looking around like, God, that is a lot of baby stuff. So Charmaine kind of sits down a little bit and she's like, with her arms folded, she's like, so what is it? Like, what? She goes, well, I can't reach him. Nobody knows where he is. She goes, look, Jack's going off grid isn't exactly a new thing. You know, it's part of the package. I love that. It's part of the package. Like, she's been doing this with him for a couple of years, and that may be just because he needed a break from her. You know, in her mind, that's part of the package. And Mel is like, no, I don't. I think this is something else. Did he tell you about the food poisoning at the bar? And she's like, no, what happened? He goes, well, Calvin had one of his guys poison the food. A bunch of people got sick. Jack's really pissed, and I'm scared he's going to get hurt if he goes after him. And he goes, well, did you tell Preacher? And he goes, no, I don't want to involve anyone just in case I'm wrong. Because, you know, Preacher it'll be everybody will get involved like everybody always does. So she's sort of like trying to find out what's going on the down low before she brings in the cavalry. Because once the cavalry gets alerted, it's all hands on deck. And she doesn't want to be wrong just in case she's wrong, you know? But her gut tells her that something is wrong. And so Charmaine asks her, well, what are you going to do? And she's like, well, I want to drive up to the pot farm, but I can't remember how to get there. Because the first time she went there, it was under duress by gunpoint, you know, and leaving was like, we have to rush these people to the hospital because Maxine just had a baby. So she wasn't paying attention to where it is. Yeah. She doesn't know. And Charmaine is like, you? Not exactly safe up there, especially somebody like you. And she's so smug. Oh, my gosh. And Mel is like, really? I'm sorry. Like, what does that mean? And she goes, oh, Mel, you live in a bubble. She's like, you're not dealing with people who have, an edge. She's like, wait. I spent 3 years working in ER in downtown LA. And Charmaine's like, whatever. Okay. There's this bar in Garberville, and I know somebody there that might be able to give you directions. And Mel's like, okay, great. Can you just give me their number, and I'll call them, and I'll ask. And Charmaine is like, oh, you can't just call somebody and ask for the address to a pot farm. Like, and she says it in such a, like, oh, this is ludicrous. Like, what are you doing? And Mel's like, oh, I'm sorry. Asking direction to a pot farm is still a little new for me. She goes, yeah, that's exactly why you shouldn't be going out there in the first place. And Mel is like, oh my gosh. Okay, then just give me the address and I'll go talk to them myself. Now, it is taking everything in Charmaine to, like, not only have this conversation, but participate in this escapade. But you know she can't not.
No, she can't.
She's like, oh, I'm going with you. And Mel's like, no, you're not. You're pregnant. She goes, yeah, exactly. With Jack's babies. She's like, look, if there's danger, this is my business too. So let's go. And she's like, well, just take me to the bar. And she goes, well, you're not going to get anywhere with B. And she's like, B? Who's that? She's like, oh, that's the owner. I used to work there when I was in high school. And Mel is like, you worked at a bar when you were in high school? And Charmaine's reaction, yeah, I did. And then she's like, yeah, see what I mean? The bubble. And the look Mel gives her. She's like, let's go find
Ricky works in a bar.
What?
I said Ricky works in a bar.
Yeah, but my guess is this bar is very different than Jack's bar. Jack's bar is like, you can have kids in there. The sewing circle, when we see the bar, could you see the sewing lady sitting there having a little powwow?
Nope.
Exactly. It's not that kind of bar.
Well,
Let's just say
Jack's bar is something like a Denny's. It's a combination of Denny's and a
it's
bar.
like a bar and grill,
Yeah.
whereas where B is much more like a bar.
Mhm.
Definitely edgier and all of that.
Yep.
My
Well,
goodness.
it's gonna be fun.
Okay. So, looks like it's raining, and we are at where they're doing some logging.
So that means that has to do with
That's
our
an
favorite bad boys.
overcast, and it's rainy. So we're at Emerald Lumber, and so it's Jimmy and Brady. They're having a little chat, talking about taking the truck, and I already told you, and Sean's got it, and Spencer's crap's not gonna fit, and so what do we do? And they're just like having this conversation. He goes, "Let's start a bonfire like a mile away from the pot farm." And so the two of them are obviously plotting something. Like something's going on between Jimmy and Brady.
And
And
it's never good
no,
when,
it's never
when,
good.
when Jimmy's involved. It's never good.
Yeah.
It's just yeah,
Yeah.
just not
Now
not
keep in mind, we're still looking for Spencer. Jack still doesn't know where Spencer is, and he's driving out to Spencer's trailer. So he arrives at the trailer, and he's hoping that he's there because remember, he's been trying to reach him. He said he would testify, and now he can't reach him, and now he's really worried. He's concerned.
You know, I would be too, considering who he's messing with.
Exactly. So he's sneaking down, hoping nobody sees him, down to his trailer. Now, it looks like somebody had been there. There's a stroller outside. There's baby clothes hanging on the clothesline, and he knocks on the door, but it's open. Like the door is not closed. It's kind of ajar. And he calls his name. Nobody answers, and he decides to go inside. He's looking around, very hesitant because you never know. Somebody could jump out at him.
That's true.
So the place is a mess, and he's looking around for clues, like where could Spencer have gone? He sees his phone, but he doesn't know
Where Spencer is.
right. Now at the same time, he hears a car pull up. And who do you think that is? He's very hesitant. Now, I don't know that they can see his car, his truck up on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
Brady is like, oh man, this is not good. This is not good. This is not good because he sees his truck. He's like, crap. I know Jack's here. So just as they walk up on the trailer, now remember a couple minutes ago we heard Jimmy and Brady talking, and that the context, it sounds like they were planning, plotting, figuring out what to do with Spencer's stuff because isn't Spencer gone?
Yeah, he's supposed to be gone.
Right? He's supposed to be dead because
Yep.
wasn't that Brady's job?
Brady's job was to kill him.
Right. So now I think Jimmy and Brady's job is to make it look like he left or something so that it's not suspicious. So maybe that's why they were at the trailer. So Brady's kind of just lurking around, and then Jack sees Brady outside. He comes out of the trailer and he was like, "Oh, where the hell is Spencer?" And Brady's like, Jack. And right as he says that, Jimmy walks up behind Jack, whacks him on the back of the head, and knocks him out. And he's like, "What'd you do that for?" He's like, "Oh, he's a way to get him into the truck." He's like, "Well, you could have just told him to leave." Yeah, that would have been too easy. He's like, "Don't you think Calvin's going to want to talk to him?" He's like, "Oh, well, that's where they got to go now. They got to drag Jack to Calvin so they can have a little powwow."
Ah, yes. Sometimes Jack doesn't. He's his own worst enemy.
I know. So Mel is off with Charmaine trying to find Jack. Doc is in Seattle. And Hope and Connie show up at the clinic looking for somebody. And they see a note on the door that says, "If you are in need of assistance, please call this number." And it's Mel signs it. So it's like, where the heck is everybody? So Hope's like, yeah. Lily's like, "Oh, Mel's out? Oh, really?" And so they're sneaking. It looks like they're sneaking into the clinic.
They're sneaking in because she's got the key to the clinic and she's going in there, and and Lily does not look comfortable doing that.
No, because she knows that Hope is up to no good at this point.
Yep.
And Lily's just following her. Now, remember, they're best friends. They've been best friends for like 20 years. And she's like, Hope, what are you doing? And she's like, what? She goes, wait, I'm not comfortable being here. You're snooping. She goes, yeah, an end justifies a mean. And she goes, you don't believe.
Again, she is her own worst enemy. Because the thing about it is, she can't let sleeping dogs lie. This is why Hope's ass is always in trouble.
Yep.
Because she's putting her nose where it doesn't belong. And I get that because of the conversation she had with the ladies that she's suspicious. But you know what? That's what a relationship is about. When Doc comes home, talk to him.
Or call
Find
him.
out.
Like, why didn't she just call him and go, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, but she's got to go through the man stuff.
Mm-mm. And I mean, Lily even says, I mean, you don't believe Doc and Muriel are having some sort of fling, do you?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, well, no, Vernon wouldn't do that. He says, well, then what are we doing here? She goes, I can't, people keeping secrets. Yeah, he's definitely doing something he doesn't want me to know. That's why, she goes, oh, is that why you're acting all weird and crazy? He goes, oh, you're my witness. Wait a minute. Let me check his voicemail. That, really?
I swear to God, that woman, jeez.
And Lily's like, wait, what? And she goes, call his voicemail? She's like, that's an invasion of privacy, and I'm pretty sure it's illegal. She goes, are you kidding? Women have been doing this for years. She goes, that's since the day that voicemail was invented. She goes, yeah, well, sorry, we can't all be saints. So she's listening to the message. And funny that she knows his voicemail number and she can check it.
Oh, yeah. She is all in.
And she goes, see, there's nothing to report. Now let's get out of here.
Yeah, Lily is not happy to be there to begin with, because she is part of the conspiracy if she gets.
She's like, could we please get out of here? I don't want to get caught. Like, I mean, Doc's in Seattle. It's not like. She's like, this feels wrong. And Hope is just not settled.
Oh, no. Hope is not happy
at all.
She's not. So now we're in Seattle, where it rains all the time.
Yep. And Doc is sitting down at a lovely table, nice view with a menu. I mean, it's a nice restaurant. Linen tablecloths, linen napkins. And he's like, it's called a sommelier. What is that?
Yes.
And that's...
he basically is a wine specialist. They know what wines go with what dishes.
That's why he asked. The guy asked if he needed one to come and speak with him.
Right, exactly.
And he said, oh, no, my friend is going to be bringing something.
So, yeah. So that's what they are.
And
they're only found in very fancy restaurants, basically. Most of them.
And who is his friend?
And look who walks up, but our girl, Muriel.
Yeah, so
comes with a bottle of
what does she have with her?
A very special bottle of wine.
She's like, oh, no, don't let that screw top fool ya. And then, so it's funny because he's like, oh, for a moment, I was afraid you weren't going to come. So this was pre-planned. This was set up. This was pre-planned, pre-organized, scheduled.
Yep. So what's going on?
Exactly. She goes, oh, no. She just couldn't decide what to wear. She's like, I haven't done anything like this before. And he's like, well, I'm really glad that it all worked out. She's like, me too. So they're alluding to some type of shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know,
what's
it's Doc.
Shenanigans? Yeah.
I mean, it's Doc.
Yeah, he's not going to do anything that's going to upset Hope in the sense of, because he's been down that road before, and I know he
finally got her back. He's not going to mess that up.
He's not going to spend the next 20 years.
Oh, God. The first 20 were bad. Let's not do that again. So Muriel says, how about we toast to new beginnings and a bright and happy future? Which sounds really nice. Now, you could take that many ways. Is this the start of a fling and it's their new beginning and bright and happy future? Or is there something else? We don't know. Cool. And he's like, oh, I like the sound of that. So they're just enjoying their wine. How nice. Yep. Now, remember, Ricky had to rush over to Lizzie's because she was freaked out because she heard something.
She annoys the hell out of me. I'm sorry.
This is where you learn a little bit more about her. And yes, everybody's annoyed with her and she's a spoiled brat, but this sort of gives you a little bit of a peek inside why, maybe why she's that way. So
Mhm.
she answers the door. Ricky comes in and she's like, sorry for dragging you over here. And he's like, no, 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 it's okay. And he's like, oh, I'd rather be here than work anyway. And so she's like, I heard a noise. And he's like, okay. And she points like upstairs. So they're cautiously walking upstairs. She's like, I thought I heard somebody outside my window. And he's like, it's probably a squirrel. Could be anything. He's looking around. He's like, or the wind, you know. And she's like, well, if you stay, then I'll make you some grilled cheese. And he's like, no, I really got to get back to work. And he's like, I think you'll be okay. And she's like, he's like, well, preacher was okay with me leaving for a little bit. And she's like, can you please just stay a little bit longer? And he's like, why do you want me to stay? She's like, well, I just thought, maybe we could hang out. And he's like, no, there's a real reason. I mean, I could call preacher and say, sure, I'll be a little longer, but you got to tell me. And she's like, okay, I don't like being home alone. And this is where you kind of find out a little bit about her. She says that growing up, her parents traveled all the time for work. So they had a live-in nanny, and she's just
Mhm.
not used to being home alone. And he's like, kind of feels sorry for her that her parents weren't around. And she's like, yeah, but even when they were home, they were in their own world. It's not like it mattered anyway. And so with him, when he's with her, he's with her. It's not like, her parents that are home, but they're doing their own thing in a different part of the house, not paying attention to her. When he's with her, they spend time together. They have conversations and whatever else they're doing, watching movies. But she actually doesn't feel alone. And, it's a little peek into Lizzie's life, which is kind of sad. So
Yes. True.
he's like, oh, okay, I'll stay as long as you want me to. She reeled him in again. I mean, that's a manipulative thing, but,
Yes, it is.
I kind of feel sorry for her. I mean, that's pretty sad that her whole life her parents don't pay attention to her and the only people that keep her company are the nannies.
Yep.
That's pretty sad.
Yep.
So
Now, oh, and this is gonna be quite a road trip.
it's a
We
road
got,
trip.
and this is not Telma and Louise, unfortunately.
No, nope. This is Charmaine and Mel. Now Mel's driving her cute little red car, and her and Charmaine are making a road trip to the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And Charmaine makes a comment. She's like, I gotta say, none of this surprises me. Jack off on some vendetta against Calvin. She goes, not once has he stopped to think about how that would affect me or the babies and all of that. And Mel's like, yeah, but think about it. Don't you think that Jack maybe feels like that if he deals with Calvin and shuts that down, in a way, it's not only protecting Charmaine and the babies, it kind of protects everybody.
Mm.
And Charmaine enlightens Mel, so she thinks, to something that maybe she thinks Mel doesn't understand. And she goes, no, you were hurt and now Jack wants blood. Because they know now that the guy who attacked Mel was one of Calvin's guys. And that they attacked the bar, which is, customers. That's personal. All that is very, very personal to Jack.
It sure is.
And she's like, yeah, that has nothing to do with me. And Mel's like, no, that's not true. And this is about Calvin poisoning the customers. She goes, I think it's a little bit more personal than that. I mean, they're going to have to agree to disagree.
Oh, which is the nature of their relationship.
Right. Now, remember, Mel has that nugget of information that Hope gave her.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, Charmaine is feeling in a place where she can speak about that. And that's why with all this happening with them searching for Jack and how he feels about Mel and blah, 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 she's like, yeah, besides, this is why I'm weighing all of my options. And Mel's like, what are you talking about? What is that supposed to mean? Your options? And she's like, yeah, I need to be in a situation that provides my family with the most security. And she goes, well, that's what Jack wants also. I mean, that's why he does everything that he does. He's a protector. She goes, my aunt and uncle invited me and the twins to come and live with them in Portland. And Mel's like, oh, how does Jack feel about that? Like, assuming that news would be something that she would automatically tell Jack. Like, it's like a no-brainer.
Hmm.
And Charmaine's like, he doesn't know. And Mel's like, no, Charmaine, you cannot take these babies away. You're going to break his heart. And she's like, well, you know what? He breaks my heart every day.
Oh, please.
It's like, really? You're a little dramatic there, sister. She's like, that's not the same thing, and you know it. So Mel, again, calls everyone on their bullshit. She goes, and not giving him a say to where his children live, that's cruel. And she's like, well, wait a minute. You know what? I'm the one that's vulnerable here, not Jack.
And I'd like to know, how is she vulnerable?
Well, the way she explains it, which, I mean, okay, I'll give her a little bit. I'll give her a little bit. She's like, if I stay in Clear River and say he decides to leave, or he decides to stop supporting her, she's the one that's screwed.
Yeah, but she needs to have that conversation with him. She hasn't had a
The
conversation
thing
with him.
is, she's not even giving him the opportunity
Exactly.
to have a decision in anything. She's just assuming that down the road he's gonna do whatever she thinks he might do. I mean, has she met Jack? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Jack is probably one of the most loyal people you'll ever meet.
Oh, please.
Right?
If Jack had to pick up a animal personality, he would be a damn dog.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, loyal to the bone.
I mean, how many times has he dealt with Brady and just keeps taking him back and taking care of him and helping? So if these are his children, there is nothing that would stop him. So in her mind, maybe because she's just been let down her whole life, she assumes that just another person would line up to let her down. That's the only way I can look at it. But she's just assuming that she might just get screwed in this whole situation. And Mel's like, no, Jack would never do that to you or his children. And she's like, well, I'm not rich like you, so I can't afford to have that kind of faith. And Mel's like, what are you talking about? I'm not rich. She goes, oh. She laughs. She's like, yeah, right. You drive a BMW and you're married to a doctor. Now, remember, she still doesn't know that her husband is dead.
That's true.
As far as she knows, I mean, she doesn't wear her wedding ring anymore, and he's not there. No one's ever met him. He's never come to visit. So all she knows is there's a doctor that you're married to and you drive a BMW. So you must be rich. Like, only rich people live like that. And Mel's like, ugh, whatever. So now we're back at Jack's bar, and the sheriff walks in. Preacher's there. And he's like, hey. And he's like, oh, you want some apple pie? And he's like, oh, yeah, sounds good. And he's like, so Howard told me you stopped by the station. He's like, yeah, I had a question about that license plate you called in a month ago. And he was like, oh, yeah, what about it? So remember when Preacher had the guy in the bar, and then he got up and left?
Yep.
And then he saw him drive away. Now, I did not know this, and I read something. The man who played that part, the man who sat down at the bar and talked to Preacher, and then we saw the same man at the mingle.
Yeah.
That person was Paige's husband, because what happened was they changed the actor, and and I didn't know that, and I don't know that they said, because I don't know, back in the old days. Okay, I'm just dating myself the way I just said that. I'm so sorry. On TV shows, they used to say the part of blah 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 is now being played by blah blah blah. Yeah. Do you remember that?
That's true. Yep,
yes.
I remember that.
Yes. For anybody who that sounds familiar, I'm sorry. I've dated us. But they used to do that, and they would let you know that they've now changed the character. So apparently they changed the actor, and the original gentleman who played that person who came into the bar and that was the actress who played Paige. That is her real husband. Did you know that?
Did not know that.
Yeah, in real life, that was her husband. Somehow or another, he left the show, and they replaced him with the guy who we saw as Wes. Or Wes is, whatever.
Okay.
And I guess something happened, and then she decided to leave the show. I think they originally had a bigger storyline for Paige, but I don't know the story behind it, but after her husband was let go of the show or left the show or decided no longer to be on the show, whatever happened, I don't know, she also left the show. And so they had to change the storyline that
Yeah,
she left.
because as you pointed out, in the book.
Oh, in the
they,
book, her and Preacher together
right,
and babies and a whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
They had
exactly.
a very extensive relationship. They have a couple of books, parts of many books, and it follows through several books. So, but they've pulled characters out and they've created characters and they've deleted characters. So, I mean, it's not uncommon. So this license plate that the sheriff checked out, apparently that car was involved in a hit and run over in Shelter Cove. And so it was interesting that there's some kind of connection. And so that's why the sheriff wanted to talk to Preacher, because now they needed a description of the driver to see if that's the same person who was involved in this hit and run. They're trying to find the connection. So it's there's just so much going for this small town. This is like a lot of crime, for them. Preacher's playing it cool. Yeah, no problem. I'll come over. Yeah. And so then he brings up, because he's digging for information without sounding like he's digging for information. And he's like, so Howard said you guys found an abandoned vehicle? Like, just playing it cool. He goes, oh, yeah, registered to a fella named Wes Logan, some big shot Florida detective. Originally, he was reported missing, and now there's a warrant after him for his arrest. And he's like, really? Wow. And he goes, yeah, bribery, extortion, assault. His partner flipped on him. Interesting. And he goes, so what happens now? He goes, oh, you know what? We don't have the resources to mount a manhunt. So, unless something draws attention, he draws attention to himself, there's really not a lot we can do. And Preacher's like, oh, okay, well, here's a slice of pie on the house. Let's distract the police.
With pie.
Although
I have to say that apple pie sounds really good.
Right? And it's Preacher. It's like the one they make at the bakery truck, which is supposed to be really, really, really good.
Yeah.
So who walks in?
Yeah, one of our favorite new characters.
Jamie.
Jamie.
She's like, oh, it's good to be back. And so she's like, so what's the whole story with the food poisoning? And he's like, you know what? It turned out your suspicions were correct. It was deliberate. It was one of our servers that was involved. And he's like, I don't have all the details. Jack says he's handling it. Now, I've said this from the beginning. I feel like in Jamie's world, because I guess the way I look at it is, in Jack's bar, Jack's the boss. And even though him and Preacher are partners, Jack's the boss. And Preacher's like perfectly happy with that situation. He cooks, he orders things, he tends bar, like he just works. Like he doesn't give too much thought about it.
That's true.
But I think in Jamie's world, I think in Gordon Ramsay's world, in other people's worlds who are in fancy restaurants in big cities, I think Jamie feels like Preacher doesn't get the respect that he should get and deserves. Because in Jamie's world, it's the chef who runs everything. The chef runs the kitchen. The chef runs the restaurant. It's all about, because without the chef, you've got nothing.
Yeah, honey, say amen.
Right?
Because I can tell you, considering what Hope said about Jack being banned from the kitchen because of a fire.
Right.
And we know Jack can't cook if his life depended on it.
The man can grill a steak.
He can grill a steak, but as far as that's concerned, it's not a steakhouse.
Right.
So the point about it is people come there to have
Food.
Meals.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and the thing about it is, can you imagine Doc, who eats meat, basically at least 80% of his meals there because he doesn't cook, and Hope cooks when she feels
sometimes,
like it.
Yeah.
So there we go.
But I think in Jamie's world, it's the chef that runs the show, and for her,
it's true.
It's like it's almost. I feel like it's almost painful for her to watch Preacher take such a back seat in
And it's
something
true.
that he should not be.
Yeah.
And so
And
she makes comments constantly that kind of annoy me because this is it's a very different situation. They're not in a
right,
big city. They're
exactly.
not in a fancy
Right,
restaurant.
exactly. Well, that's the point. I think the thing is she is thinking of it as someone who comes from a big city, and this is how it works, because as someone who used to be a pastry chef, and I
Mm-hmm.
have the person above me is the main chef, the person
Right.
who is in charge of the kitchen. I'm in charge of my section, but I'm not the boss. I'm the boss of the person who's working, of my prep cook people and whatever. But we all answer to the chef.
Right.
Okay. So the point is, as someone um who works in a restaurant, especially if she works in a fancy restaurant, which she does,
Yeah.
um,
And she
that's
runs them or owns them or
right,
whatever.
right. But that's the order how things are. And the thing about it is, even the fact that she loves Preacher's cooking,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that she feels like he's a waste of a talent in
Right.
such a small place. And the thing about it is, what she doesn't understand is the bond that Preacher has with Jack and all these other
Right.
people in this
For
town.
her,
So
it's career first, job
right,
first. Preacher,
right.
it's family.
Exactly. Exactly. So she has no way of relating to that sort of environment because she's never been in that environment.
Yeah.
It's like when you remember when Mel first came to town.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with reporting the baby to social services, because that's what you
Right. The
do.
town circled their wagons and they wanted to
Right.
deal with it themselves. Sure.
Exactly. And as Mel basically said, she's not a puppy.
Right.
It's the same thing. So in a way, I understand where she's coming from, because that's the mentality that she's used to,
And
but
I
she
get
doesn't
that.
understand.
I just feel like
Yeah.
she's
Oh yeah.
what's the
I
word? I
understand.
feel like she's kind of condescending to Preacher a lot
She
because
no,
she
no,
doesn't know where he's coming from.
right. And I get that. I totally get that. And I think she is in some way, because she doesn't know any different.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
doesn't know any different, because she has no concept what it's like to live in a small town and have that kind of community and that kind of family.
Sure.
Because that's not, we joke about how I live in an apartment building that I only know one or two of my neighbors.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I've lived here a long time, and I've seen people come and go, but I don't know my neighbors. It's
You're
just the
not
nature.
particularly interested in knowing your neighbors either.
No, not really. But that's the thing about living in a city area. And the funny thing is, what I consider city, my apartment buildings are basically close to a residential area, but it's sort of a city in this itself. But
Yeah.
anyway, besides that point. So I think that's the thing with Jamie. She doesn't understand the closeness of a small town that Preacher is in. So she
Yeah.
is condescending.
She's
She is
condescending and sometimes she's a little passive aggressive and it's kind of annoying. I'm just going to say it. I mean, I was glad that she came and went because I
yes.
was really hoping that Preacher wasn't going to get involved with her. Because I'm just like, no. Sorry. Thank you for staying. Thank you for playing. Have a nice day. Bye.
Times to go, yes.
Yeah. So she says stuff like, oh, if it were me, it would make me crazy not to have control over my kitchen. I mean, just little comments like that. And he's like, well, it's Jack's bar. And she's like, oh, well, in my world, the chef has the power. So that's what I mean. And he's like, yeah, but we're like partners. And she's like, yeah, but like and being are two different things. It's like she's just constantly like digging. And he's trying to tell her, like, I know what you're coming from, but that's not what we have here. And she just doesn't. Like, she does it so condescending.
She does.
But then she's like, okay, knowing all of this, knowing how much you love it here and the people and this and that, she's like, anyway, my former mentor is opening a new restaurant in San Francisco. The way she says it is so annoying. And based on my recommendation alone, they want to talk to you. And he's like, really?
California.
Who's the chef? And he's like, Paul Papil. And he knows, I mean, obviously, he doesn't just cook. He's a smart guy. He's a really smart guy. So he knows things. And so he knows this chef. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, really? Wow. Like, he's impressed. And he's like, uh-huh. And he goes, you'd have to start working the line, but I know you would move up quick. And this is like such an opportunity. And he's like, okay, what's the catch? And she's like, well, if you want it, you need to commit within 24 hours. And he's like, whoa. Like, that'll give him pause.
Yeah. You spend your most of your
I mean, he's been there a few
after you get.
years, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
he got out of the military, and then Jack he probably did something before that while Jack was getting that whole bar together,
yep,
and then Jack invited him over.
yep.
So
And
so
they've
that.
worked together for the last few years. So, I mean, they got a system and it's working.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Mel and Charmaine have arrived at the bar.
Oh boy. Mm-hmm.
And Mel's kind of looking around like, oh God, what are we getting ourselves into? Now, Charmaine is this is her domain. This is her
This is her
territory.
turf.
Yep,
This
she's
is
just
her
going to
turf.
stroll in there. And Mel's like, okay, just follow her in. And they go right up. And it's definitely not a Jack's bar. It's a bar.
Nope.
It's just a
It's a bar.
bar. It's
Yeah.
not a grill. It's not a place. It's just people having drinks. I mean, it's not seedy or anything. It's just,
It's a bar.
it's
It's a
not more than
bar.
a bar.
It's a bar.
Right.
People play pool and people drink
And
and
darts and what have you.
exactly. And you got the closest you probably come to a meal is the peanuts. Um,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly. I
but
doubt there's a
that's
kitchen.
exactly. So besides to clean the drink, besides to clean the glasses, that's probably as far as their kitchen goes.
Right. Now,
But yeah,
now
it's a bar.
now we meet B, and she knows Charmaine because remember Charmaine worked there in high school, and she's like, "Honey, following your man into whatever trouble he's gotten himself into with Calvin is a terrible idea." And Charmaine is like, "Oh, he's not my man." And Mel's like, "Look, we're really worried about him." And she's like, "Calvin's guys are armed and dangerous. You know that?" And she's like, "Well," and Charmaine says to her, this is where she's like, this is her way in. She's like, "Look,
Mhm.
I know your brother is hooked up with Calvin." And she's like, "Well, yeah, Davy was a good kid, but then he got involved with that monster and ugh." And she's like, "Please help us. Maybe that'll help your brother. And then maybe someone else's brother too." And Mel's like, "Look, we just need directions to where the camp is." And she's looking at her, and she's looking at Mel, and she's looking at Charmaine, and she's thinking, she goes, "Ugh." And she's like, "Look, you can't tell Calvin or anybody else how you got this information. Like, nobody can know it came from me because they will kill my brother." And Charmaine is like, "We're not going to tell anyone. Right, Mel?" And Mel's like, "Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Taking it to the grave. In the vault." And so she gives them the directions very reluctantly. They thank her and they leave. It's like, okay.
Yes.
So now they've got the directions. Now, Mel is not going to take Charmaine there. So she probably has to drive all the way back and take her home first because she said, "I'm not taking a pregnant woman up to a pot camp." Now, in the meantime, remember
Back,
Jimmy and
yeah, back
Brady,
at the butcher farm.
they got Jack because that's why nobody can
No.
find Jack because they knocked him out and they drug him.
Mm-hmm. An unconscious Jack now.
Yep.
I swear to God, that man. I swear, trouble follows him
I know.
sometimes.
Well, he kind of puts himself in it.
That
If you
too.
go looking for trouble, you're going to find it. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, definitely find you.
So Brady helps Jack out, and he's holding the back of his head because he got whacked out. He must have woken up on his way back. And inside, Calvin is logging pot. He's got jars of marijuana, and he's writing things down. And then they walk in. Jimmy and Brady walk in with Jack, and they say to Calvin, "Hey, look what we found digging around in Spencer's trailer." And Jack says, "Well, where is he?" And Jack is like, "Is he dead?" And that's Calvin kind of like takes his hat off. He scratches his head. He has this stupid smirk on his face. And he's like, "I would never do such a thing." He's got a little bit of a southern drawl. He's like, "Is that right, Brady?" And Jack looks at Brady. And Brady looks at Jack. And he goes, "What did you do?" And he doesn't even break his stare. And he goes, "What I had to." He goes, "Well," Calvin says, "I guess I should offer my condolences." And Jack's like, you have no idea what you started. Jimmy walks up. He always, because he's such a little man, when he thinks he's being tough, he has to put his hand on his gun.
Gun. He reminds me, you know how the little dogs, the
Yep.
ones that I
The
call
yap
the yap yap ones?
Yep,
It's
yep dogs.
they got to make all this noise because they're so small, while the big dogs just have to be there. They're
Just
big
stand there.
dogs.
Yep.
They don't need to make noise. And
Nope,
so
Jimmy's
Jimmy's
always
like
got a yap.
Jimmy's a yap yap dog, because the only thing that makes him feel like he's a man is that gun.
I know.
Because God forbid, there's nothing else about him that's anything impressive, let me tell you.
Now Calvin decides to draw a line in the sand, I think is a good way to put it. He says to Jack, you listen to me, Jack. Today you walk. Next time you poke your nose in my business, show up on my land, talk to my crew, that day will be your last. And Jack's like, this ain't over. And he leaves. And Jimmy's like, well, why'd you let him go? And he goes, problem is you don't see the big picture, Jimmy. And he goes, me? Psh, if I was in charge, I'd have put a bullet right between his eyes. And Brady comes back, and this is why Calvin looks to Brady and not Jimmy. He's like, look, Jack's got nothing, all right? Including a witness. Killing him just bring all kinds of problems. And he's like, look, I'm not worried about Jack Sheridan, but we need to talk business. And he looks at Brady in private, and he looks at Jimmy. In other words, Jimmy, you need to go. And he's like, I'll be outside, boss.
Jimmy is a hothead.
Well, and he just got overshadowed by Brady, who's brand new to this little organization. And Brady comes in out of nowhere and is now like Calvin's right-hand man, which that's what Jimmy used to be.
Yeah.
So apparently Calvin sees something in Brady that he does not see in Jimmy.
Well, Jimmy, finisher. Calvin tells him what to do and he finishes it. When he has to have somebody who is more level-headed, I think he thinks that he sees Brady as somebody who is much more level-headed,
right,
that he can discuss things with. So I think that's where I think it stands. But who knows?
Whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're at Lizzie's house. She's hanging out with Ricky, and they're doing a quiz, like one of those quizzes from the women's magazines. It's like, oh, what's your favorite vegetable? And Ricky's like, jicama. And she's like, what? He goes, yeah, it's crunchy and it doesn't really taste like anything. And I hate mushy food. And she's like, okay, next question. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? And he was like, how am I supposed to pick one? Is it like including drinks and snacks? And she's like, oh my God, you're not taking the SAT. Just pick a food. He's like, I don't know, I guess a hamburger. She's like, okay, smart choice. That way you get protein, carbs, and vegetables. He goes, I'm still not sure how me answering these questions is supposed to predict how many kids I'm going to have. She goes, I don't know, but I swear by these things. They're very intuitive. No matter what quiz I take, I always get the same Disney princess. This just shows how immature she is. Oh, who is that? Mulan. It's like, oh, yeah, I can see that. Oh, it says you're going to have 4 babies. He goes, nope, that thing is broken. And I'm going to have 3. And he's like, you are really stressing me out. And she's like, oh, you're just so cute. And then they start tussling around. And then the kissing begins. Uh-oh. A shirt's getting removed. She's like, there's a condom in the drawer. And he's like, for real? Woo, dude's going to get lucky.
Apparently so.
Oh, yeah. So,
and there goes the last virgins in
Virgin River. Yep. I think you can definitely not call it Virgin River anymore. I think the last has fallen. Goodness me. So Mel and Charmaine get back to Charmaine's apartment. And Mel's like, thank you so much for helping me get the directions. And she's like, yeah, well, please let me know if you find him. And Mel's like, Charmaine, are you okay? Like, she genuinely cares. She doesn't want to, but she does. I mean,
that's way too much. That's too much caring for me.
I know, but Mel has such a big heart that you would think someone who has been through as much as she has been through, that her heart isn't just a big black lump of coal at this point.
But some people are very, very...
She's so empathetic.
She's
in
very
every.
empathetic.
I mean, she oozes
And it's not that I'm not. I think it's just
You
that,
have your limit.
well, part of it has to do with Mel is in a certain part of her life where she wants people to like her, but she's at that point. At my age, I don't give a rat's you know what, because
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whether you like me, you don't like me, I don't really care. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Let's
Right.
put it that
Right.
way.
Right.
So I think when you get to my age, the women who are in my age group, we've already been there, done that.
Yeah.
We're done with
And
the
bought a
people
T-shirt.
pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've done with the people pleasing. We don't. People's business is their business. We're not getting involved as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
When you're that age, you're more
Well,
concerned about.
and also she's a nurse, so by nature, as a healthcare provider, she has a
But
different.
I'm a nurturer too, and I
True.
deal with it. It's just I think it has to do with a certain maturity level. When you get to a certain age, you do not give a rat's you know what, because at that point your life is a certain way, and you're not invested in these. You're invested in your friends
Yeah.
and your family, depending on how close you are. But the all the other stuff is outside noise that you don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
When you're in your 30s and early 40s, all that stuff is part of your existence.
Yeah.
And that's fine, and it's okay. But I look at that and I go, ugh,
Yeah.
yeah,
For sure. For sure.
I I don't need to do
I agree. No,
it.
I agree.
Anyway, so she
So
asked.
she asks Charmaine if she's okay, and she's like, "Yeah," but she really has to think about it. She's like, "I'm just starting to think that maybe it's better if me and Jack aren't together." She's like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah." She goes, "I used to think that if I dated him long enough, that maybe eventually he would fall in love with me, or maybe he wouldn't, and then I'd be married to a man who doesn't want me."
True, true, true.
And Mel's like, "Wow." She goes, "You deserve to be happy." She's like, "I know. One more thing." She's like, "What?" She's like, "I could you just promise me you'll talk to Jack about Oregon? I know if the situation were reversed, you would want to know." She's like, "Yeah, I will. I'll talk to him. But don't say anything until I do." She's like, "Okay, I promise." And when Mel makes a promise, she will keep the promise.
That is quite true.
Oh, because she's
Because it
got,
comes it
there's in the future, she got some promises. Ooh.
well, yeah, and the thing about it is part of it has to do with her profession,
Yes.
because she's used to keeping people's
Absolutely.
confidence.
Absolutely.
So
It's not
I
hard
think
for her.
no, it isn't, because I think, and people tend to forget that,
Right.
Especially in a town like this where nobody can keep a damn secret.
Right? Yeah, for sure. Totally. 100%.
Nobody can keep a damn secret.
No.
Yeah, so
So just as Mel is saying goodbye to Charmaine, she gets a phone call from Preacher. And she's like, "Hey." And so now, scenery shot. Here we are. Oh, Lizzie and Ricky between the sheets. And
as I said, though,
he's like, "That was awesome."
yeah, that goes the last virgin, as I said.
Yep. And Lizzie's like, I thought I'd feel different, but I feel the same. But I'm thirsty. Can you get me a drink or something? Maybe some Cheetos while you're down there? And he's like, "Oh, yeah, sure. No problem. I'll be right back."
The girl is a snacky. And I like that about her. I like
know.
the snacky.
He's like, "Well, wait a minute. What about your aunt?" She goes, "Oh, she won't be home for hours. There was a problem with the bakery truck." So they're like feeling very secure that they're home alone, because he goes downstairs in his boxers. That was your first mistake, dude. I mean, Murphy's Law. If it can happen, it will.
And this is Connie's house.
I know. And so he's in the refrigerator and he's all looking around. He's like, "So do you want orange juice or milk?" She's like, "Juice." "Oh, and there's lemonade." "Lemonade sounds better." And he's like, "Okay, cool." He gets the lemonade out. And just as he closes the refrigerator door, who is standing on the other side of it? And she's looking him up and down in his boxers.
Yep. And he spills the lemonade on himself.
And she's like,
and
"What
Connie
on earth do
and
you
Connie
think
looks
you're
like
doing, mister?"
she looks like she is about she's got that look from like a horror movie
Yeah.
where somebody comes out of the dark
I'd be
with a
scared.
in her hand. It looks like she's about to kill him, because there's an expression on her face, and I'm like,
And he's like, So now we're back. We're
Uh,
back at Jack's bar. Oh, poor Ricky. Poor Ricky. Such a sad, sad state of affairs. It's a little bit
uh,
busy. There's a fire going. Preacher's checking on everybody. And he gets a text message from Jamie. And she's like, so are you still thinking? He's got a little smile on his face. Now who does he see across the bar?
mm-hmm.
He sees what looks like Wes.
Exactly.
Because remember, he
Shaking.
disposed of the body. He knows what Wes looks like.
Exactly.
And what's he
And
doing?
Wes shaking. He's shaking our favorite person's hand.
And saying,
You know.
hey, nice talking to you. Appreciate it. You have yourself a great day. And oh, the worried look on his face.
Oh yeah. He thinks he's seeing a ghost, is what he
Right?
thinks.
Like he's like, did I just see what I think I just saw? Like,
Yep.
So now we're back at Hope's house. She's coming downstairs, and in the dining room, there's like 50 candles. And she's looking around, and there's music, really nice music. There's candles everywhere.
Everywhere.
And what do we see?
Doc.
He's standing there with champagne and roses. And he's like, well, hello, darling. And she's like, darling? He's like, did you have a good nap? And she's like, darling? Like, how much scotch have you had? None. But in just a few moments, we're going to have a glass of the finest sparkling wine that Washington State has to offer. She goes, yeah, well, I got a bone to pick with you. He goes, no. Come over, grabs her hands, pulls her close. There's something we got to talk about. And he sits her down in the chair, and he gets something out of his pocket, and he gets carefully down on one knee because he is 72. And he's like, I heard somewhere that people don't truly process something until they've heard it 6 or 7 times. So with that in mind, I am prepared to tell you over and over and over again that I've loved you from the first day I met you. He's so sweet. And that I will be yours until the day I die. Hope McCrae. And he opens up a little box and he says, will you be my wife? And he has a ring.
It's so
again.
cute.
He's like, again. And she's like very uncomfortable. And she gets up and she leaves the room. And she's like, you need to hear this. She goes to like leave the room, but she's like, you need to hear this. And it's a voicemail that says from Muriel, and it's like, meet me at the Tidewater Hotel 2 p.m. and bring the wine.
And
she's just staring at him. And he's like, she's like, ciao. And he's like, you listened to my voicemail?
And they've been through this already.
I
because
know.
She did
and she's
she did.
very upset. She's like crying and she leaves the room. He's like, Hope, wait. And she shuts the door.
See,
like, oh.
she's always putting her nose into things that she doesn't,
If she would have called him right away when she heard that message, things would have been very different. But she would rather listen and then stew on it, come up with her own scenario.
Yeah.
And then let her mind wander and then freak herself out, jump to 63 conclusions.
Yeah.
And then yell at him about it when he gets back. Like, it's such a waste of time and energy. The amount of time and energy she puts into all of her shenanigans, it's exhausting.
It is.
So now we see Jack, and he's in this like outdoor batting cage type thing where the balls are automatically thrown to you. He's got a hat, he's got a helmet on, and he's swinging, and he's just swinging and swinging and swinging. It's like he's getting his frustration out. And it's got like twinkle lights all around. So it's like in the, middle of the forest or something. And Mel walks up. And just as she walks up, he kind of turns around to see where her voice is coming from and winds up getting hit with one of the balls that's coming out of the machine. Like, hard.
Yep.
And he's like, how about a little warning? Are you kidding? And he's pissed. And he throws his helmet. And she's like, since you blew me off for lunch today and haven't been answering your phone... She's like, I've been driving around looking for you. The only reason I found you is because Preacher told me where you were. And he's like, sorry. I got caught up in some stuff and forgot we were supposed to meet. And she's like, you forgot? Kind of like pissed at him. And then he hits her with it. Spencer's dead. And she's like, how do you know that? He's like, well, I went to the pot camp and Calvin had Brady get rid of him. Like he hesitated. And Mel gets inside she has to move the netting to get inside this thing. And she's like, it's not your fault. Like, Spencer agreed to testify against Calvin and you didn't force him to do anything. And he's like, yeah, but he was scared and I pushed him. And she's like, look, I don't know if you can make somebody do something they don't want to do, but I do know what it's like to feel responsible for someone's death. And he's like, this is not the same thing as losing a patient. And he's drinking a beer as he's talking to her. And she kind of like has to almost take a deep breath because she's going to reveal some news to him that he didn't know. Because you know, Mel, if somebody's having a situation, she has something that happened to her that she can empathize. So this is her empathy taking center stage again.
Yep.
She's like, deep breath. The night of the accident, Mark and I were fighting. And it's like hard for her to like say the words. She's like, he wanted to quit the fertility treatments we were doing and I didn't. She's like, I was so angry I wouldn't let it go. And she thought, well, if she just kept pushing and pushing that maybe he would change his mind. And then she's like starting to get a little teary. And she's like, maybe if I had stopped talking, that maybe he wouldn't have taken his eyes off the road. And she's like, that guilt, it's all encompassing. She's like, Jack, I get it. She said, but like you told me, it's not an excuse to shut everybody else out. And he's like, no. I haven't shut anybody out. I'm the one that's been totally open with you about how I feel. And she's like, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about today. Drinking his beer. Like, he doesn't really want to talk to her about this. He's like, when I couldn't find you, I thought something happened to you. And I felt like I couldn't breathe. And she barely can get the words out. And he's like, that's how I felt about you when you left for LA. And that was several weeks ago. He's like, and the worst part of it is when you were gone, I realized as he walks past her, I didn't want to live my life without you. And he leaves I know, right? And he leaves the batting cage area. And he starts to walk away. And she's like, Jack. And she's kind of standing there like, what do I...
I'm going to have to say something.
Like, she's not going to let that go. And she's like, wait. And he's like, he thought there was a chance for them. And then when he found her with the life insurance policy and he realized that she's still so distraught over her husband that she's just not ready for a relationship. And either he's going to have to move on or be patient. And he just doesn't know where he's at. With everything else going on, it's like, whatever.
Yeah. Right now, he's just aggravated over the whole thing with
Spencer, and I mean, he's Calvin. I mean, he's just got so much going on right now. And she's like, wait. And he's like, Mel, you don't have to do this. Like, he's like, I'm not getting into this with you. And she's like, yes, I do. And she's running after him. She walks up to him and she's like 3 feet away. And they're standing there. And she's like, Jack, I need you to know how is she going to say this? And she's like, a deep breath. Like, I just, rip off the Band-Aid, girlfriend. She's like, I love you. And he's looking at her like, what? She's like, I love you. Now, his eyes are starting to tear. Her eyes are starting to tear. She's almost crying. Like, she's barely holding it together at this point. She's like, I love that you can make me laugh even when I don't want to. And he kind of chuckles, but you can tell he's like ready to cry. He's like, I love that you listen more than you talk. I love that you were just willing to be my friend. I love that you built me a home. I love waking up next to you. And his eyes are tearing. I feel safe even when you're not there. I mean, I'm waiting for a tear to drop from him. I'm so sorry that I pushed you away. I just thought, like she always thought, by protecting her heart, she couldn't get hurt. But she says the thought of not having you in my life is so painful. She's practically crying at this point. And as he walks closer, she's like, I can't. And he's like, I can't take it anymore. And he grabs her and he kisses her.
It's so sweet.
It's like, oh my gosh. Now, remember, they have not been together since they were together. Remember, that was the last time.
Yep.
Because then she found out Charmaine was pregnant and then blah, blah, blah. And that is how it ends.
It ends so adorable.
I mean, now, okay, I'll give you some tidbits. So when that scene was done, when the writers wrote that speech, that I love you speech, when they first got that speech, there was more to it. Apparently, the original script had something about Mark in it and some other stuff. And, I mean, Alex Breckenridge has been playing Mel. This is now 2 years. And she kind of pulled the writers aside and said, I mean, she's professing her love to him.
Yeah.
Why would she talk about her ex-husband or her dead husband? Like, that just seems disingenuous.
Mm-hmm.
And so her and Martin Henderson, who plays Jack, and the writers kind of went through a bunch of rewrites to find the right voice, the right words that felt more genuine to what the situation needed. And so not often do they get to change the words and but this was one of those times that she felt very strongly that it needed a bit of tweaking.
It's a nice tweak, I have to say.
No, she was actually, they just did because her and there'll be a character coming on in season 3 who plays Jack's sister, and that actress, Zibby Allen and Alex Breckenridge are like BFFs. They're like besties now. And they have a podcast, which if you're interested, I Like You Very Much podcasts. You can find that with the two of them. It's hysterical. It's so good. They interview all kinds of, cast and crew and everything. But they were talking, someone asked a question, what is your, like, one of your favorite scenes, or which one is most memorable, or which one really stands out? And this particular scene was one of Alex Breckenridge's, like, this one is one that she remembers distinctly, like, because it was like the moment that Mel says that she loves Jack, and the words that she used and how they tweaked it and fixed it and made it what it needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was more genuine to the character.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So it's like sometimes you're glad that, okay, yeah, I'm glad you put your 2 cents in, because that was definitely. Can you imagine if she's like, oh, I love you, but my husband Mark, like, no, don't talk about Mark. This is not a time. No, we're not bringing. No, he's done. I'm sorry, he's dead, and we mourned him, and we put him on a boat, and we sailed him away, and But now, yeah, let's not talk about Mark anymore. We've cried enough about Mark. We've moved on. Let's move on. Here we go. We're starting anew. So now they're together, because he already told her he loves her.
Oh, yeah.
He's just been, he even said, after their first night together, and he was like, I'll wait whenever you're ready. And he literally has been waiting and waiting and waiting. I don't think he's going to have to wait much more. Just wait a little bit more. Just a little bit more, Jack. Almost there, my friend. But yeah. So finally, he just needed to give her time to process all that grief and to move past that, which took time. I mean, that's a lot of heavy stuff, but it took him disappearing for her to like realize that she can't live without him. So there you go. Now we're in love. It took season 2, episode 9. But we got there. We finally got there. And it's not going to be easy. It's just not.
Oh no, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, we're just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be an interesting ride. All
That's
right.
Man.
Okay. Well, the next episode is wow, it's the cliffhanger. It's the season cliffhangers, and when they season cliffhanger, God, some of the stuff they do at the end is like, we gotta wait a year to find out what happens. Oh,
I don't think so.
It's painful.
Yeah,
but
that's the hard part.
Yeah,
that hard part.
It's okay. We can handle it. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening. I hope you're enjoying our shenanigans as we chat along with Virgin River. Have yourself a great day. Take care, everybody.
Au revoir.
And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.